right, we're going to be starting in 1 minute. All right, it's now 7 p.m, so we'll open the meeting. Welcome everyone to the Corporate and Community Services Committee meeting. I'll start with an acknowledgement of country. So we'd like to acknowledge that the land that we meet on today is the traditional lands of the Kaurna people, and that we pay respect to their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. Moving on to item 2, so attendance. I believe we have an apology from Councillor Mick Lorna. Is there everyone else is here? Are there any motions to grant leave of absence? No, and there's currently no one with a leave of absence. So we've got no one speaking in public open forum at the moment, but we do have 2 deputations tonight. So first we have Ms. Prue Blackwell from the Gawler Domestic Violence Network, followed by Martin Kennedy, also from the Gawler Domestic Violence Network. So Prue, would you like to come up and just press the microphone?
Thank you, Councillor Solomon, and thank you to David Barrett and his staff for approving this deputation. As you've introduced, Councillor Solomon, both Martin and I represent the Gawler Domestic Violence Network, of which we've been members since 2016. The purpose of our deputation tonight is to update you on 3 issues pertaining to the network's current work. Firstly, it's about the update of the mosaic mural in the Pocket Place beyond Walker Place. The second issue that we'd like to raise is the naming of the park in which the mural is located. And thirdly, which Martin will speak to, is the issue of merchandise, potential sales and rights to sell. Just in terms of a context for new councillors that might not be aware of the work of the Gawler Domestic Violence Network, we're essentially a subcommittee or committee of the Zonta Club of Gawler. Zonta Club of Gawler will be celebrating its 30th birthday this year, which will be a very proud moment for us, and like other service clubs in the town of Gawler, to take every opportunity to celebrate the things that we've achieved and the goals that we've set for the future. One of the major goals of Zonta, and I should say just from the outset, we're an international organisation. Our role is about empowering women and girls, and there are something like Zonta's 33 districts in the world of Zonta across the globe, within about 66 countries. Numbers are slightly declining, which is not unusual for the service club world, but increasingly we're looking at electronic opportunities, and there's certainly a big growth rate in individual membership. And that's similar in Gawler. In Gawler, we've attracted 4 new women, young women, and we have a nice mix of experienced, incoming and long-term valued members. However, one of the main goals of Zonta worldwide, and that we've picked up very, very robustly in Gawler, is the work towards the elimination of violence against women, and hence the establishment of the Gawler Domestic Violence Network. In the 16 days of activism, which is a universal period at the end of each year from November the 25th to December the 10th, we will paint your town orange again. We do it every year. And I'm here to thank you for the support that you give the DV network in the work that we do, through the work of the Mayor, through the work of your committees, and for individual councillors that have followed our work during those 7 years. We're extremely grateful. And we invite you to be part of that again this year. And I think I've seen one of our members put an application to you to light up the council chambers and any other public buildings orange during that period. But just to briefly remind you, the sorts of things that we do is hang banners in the main street. Gawler says no to violence. We've run seminars. We've got a very good relationship with White Ribbon Australia. We've got one of those community partners here. We run vigils every year. We march. We put out data. We follow the research. And we generally try and keep the town in an awareness space about the scourge of domestic violence, not only here, but nationally. But in late 2022, we started work on a mosaic mural. We really were inspired by the work of Spirit of Women project that now has got similar developments, not mosaic art, but other art pieces in the cities of Charles Sturt, Port Adelaide, Onkaparinga, and the city of Adelaide are about to launch theirs. So in November last year, we launched the installation of the first 3 of 6 panels of a mosaic art piece called Remembering Courageous Women. The possibility of that work has been made available to us through significant community donations, $10,000 from Villawood developers, and most importantly, $12,000 of your own money through ratepayers. That money has enabled us to complete the artwork, and the 6th of the 6 panels is being completed right now in the Gawler Railway Station. The Lions Club have lent us some of their space to do it. We're going to launch those last 3 panels and finalise that mosaic piece. It's a magnificent piece, and I invite everyone to come to the launch on Thursday, September the 7th. The Mayor will obviously have a major role in that opening, along with the Minister for Women, the Honourable Katrine Hildyard. That is a long-standing piece of work that's been led by Sandra Sullivan, one of our Zonta members and who's an artist in this space. Sandra and her team of volunteers will come to you for that installation towards the beginning of September. That then becomes your property. It's located on the yet-to-be-named Pocket Park, and it's really an extension of the work that you know about Walker Place and the connectivity to the river and the wider Apex Park.
Sorry, Prue, we're just coming to the end of 5 minutes. I'll give you a bit longer.
Thank you. Thank you for that segue. That just leads me nicely into, having talked about the siting of that park, asking you to consider the naming of that park. Just briefly, for Zonta, the Zonta word is derived from a Sioux Indian word in America, meaning honesty and trust. And in keeping with your Ghana naming, I'm wondering whether you can be encouraged to develop Ghana naming in synergy with the definition of Zonta. Thank you for the time, Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, Ms. Blackwell. Does anyone have any questions? No, thank you. Thank you, Prue. Now, Martin.
Good afternoon. Good evening, sorry. Mayor, councillors and staff. Thanks for having me here. As Prue said, I'm a founding member of the Domestic Violence Network since 2016, but I've been pretty passionate and worked in that space since 1992 in various roles and on various committees. I'm here to talk about mosaic wall merchandising. Prue's just told you it's the mosaic wall is remembering courageous women, those who have died as a result of family or domestic violence at the hand of a partner or ex-partner. We're very proud of what we've done so far. It's a piece of arts and public space and owned by the town of Gawler. It was envisaged and designed by the Gawler Domestic Violence Network member, Sandra Sullivan, and constructed by her and a team of others under her leadership. Quite a band of people have come in at different times and helped her. I was there for a few Mondays in May, working my fingers in the cold. It was terrible. It's an interesting sort of a skill to develop. The last couple of meetings at the DVN, we've discussed merchandising. We've sort of thought about full colour A4 high quality prints of the wall itself, perhaps coasters, table mats, scarves and postcards. If anyone's seen the Afghan scarf exhibition trifold, it's got on the front is a photo of the scarf, and of the scarf, the artwork that will be here in this building for a couple of months from mid-November to mid-January. We envisage perhaps something similar to that. We'd sell them probably at Gawler Information Centre events, perhaps online. It's not about profit, but about expanding the reach of our message beyond those who visit the wall, beyond those who sit and contemplate what it represents and why we built it. We believe quite strongly that we have the intellectual property rights to merchandise the artwork. And I'm just asking council to ponder how this quite moving and quite special and quite massive piece of artwork came to be in our community, and to agree that the Gawler Domestic Violence Network has the right to produce and distribute merchandise featuring this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Question, Mayor Redmond.
Thank you, Martin and Prue. What is the impact for women in this community for the work that you're doing?
Either of you can answer that. Would either of you like to?
We'll try and do this jointly. Look, I think the impact is immediate for this community. I think the location that we've jointly decided on, you know, is a great opening and opportunity. I think it's also broader than this community. I imagine from your own experiences, the attraction of visitors and tourists to that space, picnickers, etc. The location now to the playground, toilets, access to the surrounding businesses exposes it beautifully. It's also well, we've got plaques on it with good explanation. In all of our awareness raising, the measure is obviously very difficult. But one assumes by the work that we've done over the last 7 years, that when we distribute the posters to businesses, as example, mirroring the banners, there is now no longer any question about whether or not people will have those posters. So that the awareness has really captured a mood in the town. I agree, there's some concern sometimes when it's so graphic and people, but it challenges people, it challenges conversations in the community. We hear that with all the banner supporting people. And Martin certainly follows that up when he does repeat visits. So yeah, it's received, but in terms of specifics, that's an unknown, but I don't think it's time to stop, and this mural will be long-standing.
Is there nothing you'd like to add, Martin? Cool.
I'd just like to say that when the some couple of other retired policemen meet me from time to time around the town, they say, when am I going to stop the work that I've been doing in relation to trying to educate the community and increase awareness of the community regarding domestic violence? And I say, when I'm dead, because it won't be finished by then. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you both. Are there any other questions for either of our speakers? Councillor Davies.
Just around the timing of when did you need to have this sorted out in regards to the rights and all that kind of thing?
We don't plan to start tomorrow. It's one of those things, it's a work in progress. It was a thought bubble a couple of meetings ago, but like the banners were a thought bubble for a couple of meetings, and then we brought them to the council here back in 2018, and we now have them. Then we got to work on it, but I would think a couple of months at least before we even start doing something. we've got some good ideas. We've got a lot of active participants in the network. We've got the skills to do it. We just want to clarify before we start what you think.
We've got two more questions. We'll go first to Councillor Kosh and then to Deputy Mayor Shanks.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Through the Chair, just to the presenters, the naming rights. Have you had any conversations yet with the Ghana community about naming rights, or would that you think that will happen through council?
I think that will happen through council. Obviously, you've been using language rights for the work that you've done thus far, and I suspect it's a continuation of that process. However, we're happy to be part of the informing role, if that's appropriate.
Deputy Mayor Shanks.
Yeah, through you, Chair. What is I'm just asking for some guidance on the process, maybe through you to staff, in what is needed from council to investigate the need of rights, process moving forward, and all that sort of stuff. Can I just ask for some feedback?
Yes. Is there anyone, or Henry, if you could talk to the merchandising rights?
I can honestly say I don't know. I'm sure it's a little bit complicated, but we'll try to unravel that, do some investigations and report to council, relative to it being on a public reserve. The structure is owned by council, but the intellectual sort of rights related to the artists, and yeah, so we'll have to take that on notice and we'll investigate accordingly.
So that'll be followed up after the meeting. Councillor Shanks, so Deputy Mayor Shanks again.
Thank you. Just one last one. Just following on from Councillor Kosh's comments. Is this the naming rights? Is this something that we could maybe filter through the RAP?
I think we do have some guidance in the RAP, but is there anyone who can clarify that? David, Ms. Barrett. Sorry, we've had.
Through the Chair, certainly we could filter that through the RAP. We already have that working group working on dual naming of reserves and things like that at the moment, which, as council is aware, the work is now sitting with Kumakara Cultural Services, but we can definitely progress this through that Reconciliation Action Plan working group.
Thank you. Any last questions for Martin or Prue? No, thank you both for coming and speaking tonight. We really appreciate having you here and hearing about that excellent work as well. Moving on now to declarations of interest. So are there any declarations of interest for items tonight? Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'll be declaring a general conflict of interest for item 9.3.
No worries. All right, we'll list that and then we'll come to that at the time of the item. Are there any other declarations of interest? Councillor Kosh.
I may have to give a declaration for 9.3 now I think about it. I did think about it originally, but I'm not sure yet. I'll just see what Councillor White says, then I'll go from there.
No worries.
Yeah,
right.
thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kosh. No worries. All right, if there's no further declarations of interest, we'll move on to confirmation of the minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes? Is someone happy to move those? Councillor Davies, happy to move that way. Can I please get a seconder? Mayor Redman, all those in favour, unanimously carried. Is there any business arising from the minutes? Fantastic. On to decision reports. 8.1 recreational vehicle parking. I believe there's an alternative motion which has been circulating for this one, and that's is that what we have on the screen? So it's just that small change in red there. Is it? That's the only change to it? Yeah, that's the, yeah. So I believe, that it's some advice on that, CEO, that's a valid motion.
Yeah, I'm confident that it's a valid motion.
So would someone like to move, one way or the other? Councillor White?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I'm happy to move it. There is also a minor change as well, which was 0.4, which it doesn't have the comparison to the original motion in the agenda, but the original motion did have an explanation. If members want time to look at that, I'm not sure, but the original motion in the agenda was notes that overnight recreational vehicle parking is not recommended at the Murray Street South site due to spatial and access constraints, upfront and ongoing operational costs, and the presence of caravan parks well within 20 kilometres of the town centre. The alternate motion that I'm moving just disregards the last part of that motion with the explanations. Does that, and I will explain that in a minute, but does that make sense?
So the motion that's on the screen is the one that you're seeking to move?
Yes,
Yes,
correct.
all right, that's correct. All right, so that's motion. Happy to, would you so like to speak to that first?
Yeah, if that's
Councillor White,
okay.
and then
Thank
we'll
you, Chair.
Come to Councillor Samble.
Thank you. So, first of all, I would really like to express my gratitude to council staff, in particular Wendy's team, David Barrett, as well as Brendan Eckert for their hard work in putting together this report, which has been a culmination of many investigations and motions over the past 12 or so years, as far as I believe. Look, during the 2022 local government elections, many members of the Gawler community expressed their interest in the benefits of creating infrastructure to encourage and allow recreational vehicles such as caravans, camper vans and camper trailers to park within the town of Gawler. Many travellers, particularly caravanners on long road trips, seek out easy to access towns, services and places to park when looking for locations and points of interest to stop at. Having a dedicated parking area where travellers can explore our CBD, grab a meal, shop at our retail stores or explore our town's heritage by foot is what our community is seeking. In February, we asked for a feasibility report that came back saying the Murray Street South location is a feasible location for an all-day parking area for recreational vehicles. This is something that the community wants, and this is something that is going to bring great benefits to our community. Through my experience, I think it's an incredible opportunity to cash in on travellers coming through our town and providing them with an easy to access, close to the central business district, well signed and overall easy parking area. It will not increase the caravans or recreational vehicles that travel down Murray Street. In fact, I'd suggest it actually reduces them because you're allowing them an easy area to park away from the main drag of Murray Street, where they can be hopping onto the footpath and walking on foot down the street. Also, the recreational vehicles and caravans are already here in Gawler. They are already travelling through, and I just think an initiative such as this parking area will allow them easier access to stop and encourage them to get out of their cars. At the moment, this site is already being informally used by caravanners and RV drivers. In fact, last Saturday night, I saw 2 people that appeared to be sleeping there overnight. And it is constantly used throughout the day as an easy area to park. So really, as it stands at the moment, it is already being informally used for what this motion suggests. The adjustments I've put in this alternative motion are twofold. First of all, point 2 is just to better summarise what the report was saying and get some action for the community. And in point 4, I really felt like we needed to take the emotive out of the recommendation. The report explains the reasoning why that site is not feasible, but I think to include that in a final resolution, if it's passed, is a little bit inappropriate, as it may jeopardise any future discussions or future conversations we may have about either this site or other sites around Gawler. So that was my reasoning behind the slightly alternative motion. Cost-wise, it is a little bit of an investment if proceeded as the report suggests. But I believe that the future return on investment is something that will indirectly benefit our community in the long run. And of course, very much encourage visitors to our town, which can only be a good thing. Furthermore, this site has been flagged for redevelopment in the future in the Gawler Town Centre parking strategy. So really what we're doing is, I guess, just escalating the work that is already scheduled to be completed. Regarding consulting the Gawler Caravan Park in respect to extending the 2-hour parking day to 4-hour, I think that's a great initiative, and I really commend staff on putting that in there as well. But overall, I would really ask members to support this motion. I think it's a fantastic opportunity to increase tourism and the benefits to our community. But I also am very happy that it is here at this committee meeting so we can have a robust discussion and debate around what everyone's thoughts are. So I'm very eager to hear everyone's opinions. But thank you very much. And yes, I do encourage you though to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Sample, you're looking to second. Would you like to speak to the motion?
I think that everything's been said in Ethan and the staff and the way they've done this work. I suppose I'm still concerned about the fact that somebody with a beautiful $500,000 mobile home come to the town, you're only allowed to stay for 4 hours and nick off. You know, like these mobile homes are totally independent. They do not need a dump point. And I say that with capital letters. And that sort of thing, because our caravan parks have those dump points. And we should not be putting in something that's competing with our businesses in the town that pay rates. So I certainly support this very much so, and hopefully that there'll be, as Councillor White said, some good debate on this because it's very, very important. I think the lack of knowledge of quite a number of people in the room about the point of what an RV is something that in my looking into it after this has been brought to the table, it's quite interesting. They say you mean a caravan. No, it's not a caravan, it's an RV vehicle. They are different and they're large and they need easy access parking. And, you know, I'm considering what Councillor White just said then about the fact that we include that to 4-hour. Well, that's exactly right. We should, because it's going to take you half an hour to walk into the shops to get a meal and do some shopping and everything, and the half an hour to come back. And it's very important that that area there next to the caravan park is utilised a lot more than what it is now. So I'm happy to second it and urge councillors to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Sample. Discussion, we'll go first to Councillor Hennessy and then come to Councillor Kosh.
Thank you, Chair. I too would like to thank staff for a really comprehensive report and the chance for elected members to be consulted prior to the preparation of the report. I think that's a particularly useful way of dealing with complex matters, and I think it adds to the quality of the paper that we've been presented. I also have experience with camper vans, RVs and whatever, and I've also had concerns that date back well before council picked this up, where I know members of the car club actually tried to get a dump point in place in Williston in conjunction with the Scouts, but the costs were prohibitive to that stage. So I go back a long way with this one. I think we're coming close to a useful compromise, and I think it does set us up very carefully to be able to move forward, and which can only benefit the tourism part of our town, but also recognises the importance of our 2 caravan parks and the B&Bs, and tries to make sure that we're being fair to everybody in the town. I'm wondering though, with the amendment, I wonder if the mover and seconder would consider taking the word currently as a point 4, because I actually think that biases it a bit. I would like it if we can remove currently, it's just not recommended at this point. Currently to me says that could change, and I very much am not in favour of overnight. Daytime parking is fine, and as Councillor Sample says, it looks like it might be able to have 4 hours down outside the caravan park, but perhaps longer during the daylight time in summer. Down there might end up being 8 to 10 hours. So I think with that I can support it. I have a couple of questions though through the chair. I guess implicit in my reading of the report was that we were going to, in a sense, turn a blind eye to the existing use of that car park, and that while we then go through a process of looking at a revised land management plan and a development application. That causes me concern that we might in fact be breaking our own policies in doing that. So my question would be, how long do we think that the revised land management plan and development application might take? And therefore we should allow that process to happen and also allow the budget to be considered in the budget review in September before we proceed. I'd much more that we spend time doing this carefully and properly than to risk annoying the community by not allowing them to have some input into what is a change of land use, in fact, with this site.
Thank you, Councillor Hesse. So we'll go to the question first and then we'll come back to the wording of the motion. Wendy?
So through you, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Hennessy. They're really good questions. So I just want to talk about the community land management plan to start off with. So the community land management plan over that area is actually out of date and actually requires revision in real time at the moment. A couple of previous reports have noted that that's intended to be done this financial year, pending some resourcing availability. So look, I don't think the revision to the land management plan needs to be a hold up to this particular resolution moving forward. I mean, the land is actually used informally as a car park now. So, and the reality is it's recreation land, and car parking is able to be supported on recreation land because car parking supports the use of adjacent land for recreation, be it walking to Deadlands Pass or seeking recreation in the town centre. So I think the community land management plan, that revision needs to happen in parallel, but doesn't hold up this project moving forward. With regard to the development application, I need to get a little bit of further advice from the planners before I can formally give you the response on that. But given we're not talking about lighting, we're not talking about the fencing at this point, we're purely talking about earthworks and drainage and widening the driveway and putting up a sign. Again, all of that is already happening on that site. So I think, again, it's not going to be a hold up. We can go through that formal process and that will take a couple of months. So that's the advice.
Thank you, Wendy. Does that answer? Back to you, Councillor Hennessy.
Almost. My concern is that how do we go about consulting with the near neighbours of this site? And I'm specifically thinking of the 2 emergency services that are on the other side of the road. So how do we seek their input into this proposed plan?
Wendy?
So through you, I think that's another good question. And I think I might have to put that one on notice and respond.
Satisfied with that, Councillor Hennessy. Thank you, Wendy. So we're coming back to, I believe Councillor Hennessy asked whether it was amenable to the mover to remove that currently in there. So that's ultimately the decision of the mover and the seconder. Is that amenable to you, Councillor White? Is that amenable to you, Councillor Sample? It is. Okay. In that case, we'll remove that word currently. Fantastic. So we'll go to Councillor Kosh first and then we'll come to Mayor Redmond.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Hennessy covered most of the things I was going to talk about. I was concerned about the word currently because I think that was in conflict with what was said in part 2. I do have a concern about it becoming a de facto free overnight parking facility and that being in competition with the caravans, because we've already got situations where people are parking overnight, and once you formalise it, I suspect that people will just park overnight and therefore will become a de facto free parking spot. And I don't know what we do about that. Obviously, we're not doing anything at the moment, so that's an issue. I'm concerned about the land management agreement because once the land management agreement for that site, it is a flood zone, it is a flood area. But what we're actually doing, and I want to just use this word, I just want people to understand this word, you're providing exclusive use to one class of people. That's sort of essentially what you're going to do over the whole community. And that's not what we should be doing. We shouldn't be providing exclusive rights to one group or class in our community. I think that is an issue because it is public land. So that needs to be really looked at. I think sometimes we over egg the benefits that RV travellers actually provide, because sometimes people talk about this is their daily spend, but the daily spend actually includes, and I've researched it, I've looked at it quite in depth, it actually includes everything that they pay that day. That includes, you know, a percentage of their car registration, their insurance, their health cover, their telephone plan, you know, storage for their gear back home, etc., etc., etc. So sometimes we get this figure, this really big figure, but really that figure is what they spend per day over a certain amount of time. And that's how they work out how long that you'll be on the road. When you're actually talking about what they spend in the community, sometimes it's very little. If they don't want to spend anything at a caravan park, you wonder what they're going to do spend in the main street. They're not going to get a haircut every day. They're not going to go to a restaurant every single night. They're not going to go to the movies every single day. They tend to want to save money, so they stay out on the road longer. So sometimes we over egg, you know, the economic value of RV. And the other thing I do get annoyed with is that their organisation basically says, we will promote you if you give us all this free stuff. If you give us free access to this land next to the, you know, in the main street, etc., at the expense of the rest of the community. And it's almost you know, they say, well, if you don't do that, we're going to tell everybody that you're not friendly and they're not going to come there. So it's almost a threat, you know, not to come to your community if you don't give them things for free. And I just find that I'm a little bit concerned about the way that they deal with communities, because they do that constantly. For example, in the Barossa, I've heard that they continually ring up the Barossa and say, please put in an RV, otherwise it won't turn up. And then it gets recorded somewhere, and then all of a sudden you've got all these emails and phone calls, but they're from that group trying to lobby to get something free. I know, but that's the way it is. I mean, if you've got a $500,000 vehicle, surely you can afford to spend $5 and, you know, spend a few dollars at staying at the caravan park. I know people don't want to necessarily stay in caravan parks, but staying down at Dead Man's Pass is not being out in the bush. You're basically in a town, basically an urban area, you may as well be in a caravan park. So that's why I'm concerned that if it becomes an overnight stay area, which I potentially it will, that is competing with the local caravan parks. And that's just the reality. So I am still concerned about this. It's been going on for a lot of years. I mean, it has come over it's come back so many times. It does work, I think, in smaller towns where you need that economic driver. If you've got two towns close to each other, people will go to one town over another. But in Gawler, I don't think it really has a lot. And again, with the economic benefit, we're servicing 90,000 people. You know, half a dozen people in RVs is nothing. Will not affect our economy at all. One jot, it just won't. So I think we tend to over-egg that whole thing about the economic benefit of RVs. So I'll see how the debate goes and I'll decide how I vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Koch. Over to Mayor Edmund.
Thank you, Chair. The 4-hour parking along Main North Road adjacent to the Gawler Caravan Park used to have at least 20 cars for sale, and then you'd have people parking, sometimes 3 abreast, to look at the cars. And that created a safety issue as you came over the Williston Bridge going into Gawler. And it also caused problems because people would just pull out and it was quite dangerous. So I'd like to ask a question around the 4-hour parking and what processes can you put in place that stops cars for sale rather than RVs staying there for 4 hours? If that can be, hopefully I can get an answer to that question.
Would anyone like to answer that question? Wendy?
Thank you through you, Chair. So the report quite distinctly notes that that type of usage of the car, that area of parking has historically been done, and that was actually part of why the reduced time frame was put in place. Making it specific RV only parking is a little bit difficult because of the interpretation of RV vehicles within the Road Traffic Act. So the advice I've got is that I can't make an RV only parking sign for those 4 hours. So within the report, I guess that's why I was saying let's put it up to 4 hours and monitor how it's used. And if it's being used by RVs and it's going really well, then let's move forward with that. But if it's going back to being misused by private vehicle sellers, then we'd have to revert it back. I know that seems like a bit of messing around, but I guess it's sort of giving the chance to see if it does work to get those RVs in the longer time.
Mayor Redmond. Yes, you speak to the motion.
Yeah, look, I remember driving over Williston Bridge because I live in Williston, and it was dangerous. It was really dangerous. So I have concerns around that 4 hour parking. There will be cars for sale. They will second that, and it was dangerous. And I can't stress that enough. I know, yeah. I know that, yeah. All I can say is I saw some near misses as I came over that Williston Bridge. It's not okay to have cars parked there for sale, 3 abreast, and people doing U-turns right at a T-junction. It's not okay. And I would have thought that we would have had a bit of a stronger land use for only RVs. You know, I will support the motion. However, if I see an accident and if I have a near miss coming over that, I'll be really annoyed because I've raised it on multiple occasions in the past. That's why it went down to 2 hours, and it actually stopped the problem. It stopped the problem because it was dangerous. So if you're driving on Main North Road over the Williston Bridge, you're gonna need to really slow up because it will be dangerous and cars will be there for sale. They will second that area. The RVs won't be able to park there because they won't be able to find a spot, because there used to be 20 cars there. I counted them one day. And I just think that this is allowing that to occur when it's an absolute safety issue for people in cars coming over the bridge and even coming the other way. I just, yeah, I don't know how. I know that what I say doesn't always matter, but you know, it is really important to understand the safety risk. I saw it with my own eyes. So I will support the motion. However, the 4 hour parking is going to be a problem if RVs are not can't get in there. And what will council do when it's filled with cars for sale? You know, what do we change it, or do we just leave it the same and, you know, bugger the people in Williston who drive over the bridge? So I think that's really, I don't think that's okay, but yeah, it has happened before, and I just think we're opening up a bit of a Pandora's box because it has happened before. So I will support the motion. However, I'm really concerned about that part of this motion because there's an exceptional safety risk for people, for motorists. Yeah, so I guess I'll be watching that. And if they are 3 abreast and doing U-turns, what do we do then?
Thank you, Mayor Redmond. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the motion? Deputy Mayor Shanks.
Yes, look, thank you, Chair. Yeah, look, I'm happy to support this in the way that I think is a very measured approach. Ever since I came on council, the conversation around RV has been an interesting one to follow. And then the report, you know, reading back and seeing 2011 it being brought in, I think there's always been a little bit of an appetite in the chamber in looking into this. And I think this is a measured approach to try to see how and if this could be a positive for our town and utilise a space that I think is already informally being used as this, right? And activation of the space has, you know, the space hasn't changed and there might have been some opportunities for activation. I think this is a good response to that activation. I've also been talking to caravan owners as well around this, and my mum and her partner actually just went on a 3-month trip, and she used an app called WikiCamps. And what that does, for those that don't know, is it helps plot their trip in the nation. And what happens and what they look for is day parking. They might look for dump points. They might look for caravan parks. It's however it goes is how they plot their trip. And as something as simple as the ability to park somewhere can completely change the course of a trip. Now, if we have an opportunity to change a course for interstate visitors, local visitors coming from the south, to bring them into our town, I don't understand why we wouldn't try to jump at that opportunity. Also, some of the reports that people that use these sorts of apps maybe stop in a town and get to know a town that otherwise they wouldn't know, and then maybe put it on their list on, hey, guess what? Maybe when we loop back around, we're actually going to now stay in the caravan park because we actually like what Gawler's got to offer. We actually want to spend 3 nights there, and we want to be able to take benefit of that caravan park that we drove past that we otherwise wouldn't have. Again, these are all aspirational ideas. I get all that, but I don't understand what the downside of trying these things out would be, and activating and formalizing a space that's already being used for this is a no-brainer in my opinion. Where to from here? I think the staff have put together a really good report in saying, hey, look, we acknowledge some of the downfalls on some of the other areas that have been discussed historically, but this one I reckon we can make work, and let's monitor it. I think the point around the potential proxy car yard is definitely something to take on board, because I too live in Williston. I'm actually a little bit embarrassed to say that I sold my ute utilising that space, but didn't realise the angst that I was causing at the time. I was only 18 years old, but I'm sure I can beg for forgiveness there. But anyway, I think the communication and what we can try to utilise these parks, and in consultation again with our caravan park owners and our space there, if there's an opportunity to activate for the positive, then I think it's worth a shot. If it does go negative, I think we do need to act swiftly and taking that on board. But yeah, look, again, I would also like to echo Councillor Hennessy's point in inviting elected members to actually do a little bit of a tour of these areas. I was personally, I was spewing I wasn't able to come because it was a work hour, but I find it really valuable being able to ring up my colleagues and say, hey, how did that meeting go? So that's also helped as well. So yeah, look, I'm happy to support the proposal, the motion, the way that it sits, and yeah, look forward to seeing, you know, what benefits we can pull out of it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Shanks. Councillor Hughes.
Just with the car parking by the caravan park, it was also the used car sellers that were actually heavily involved in talking to councillors and council to actually try and regulate that as well as the safety issue. So the major employers and ratepayers are the car yards. Yeah, I myself saw people running across the road, whole families looking at cars and stuff like that, and agree with the mayor that sometimes they were parked three wide there, and cars coming around that corner did have to hit the brakes and things like that. So yeah, it was a safety issue. And it's something else down by Gawler Green. We changed the hourly rate there so people couldn't sell cars in that area as well, to try and restrict that. And a lot of that was lobbying from the car yards to try and work out a way of sort of working in with them as well, because apparently some of these people were just constantly selling cars which affected their business. I think the South Reserve, there is actually a house being built across the river now. So yeah, there may, I think it, as far as sites go, it's probably really the best to try. It would be good because we do get comments about that reserve needing a tidy up and a spruce up. So Joe, if that could be part of this process, that would be good. It is in a flood zone, so that any infrastructure needs to be carefully monitored there. But I think this is a compromise to get that longer term car parking for larger vehicles. Hopefully we don't get trucks or which is happening all around the state at the moment as well. So yeah, it will have to be monitored and be part of the process. But I think as a compromise, this is the way to go. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Right, well, that's been a very robust discussion. So if there's no one else, I'll go back to Councillor White to close the debate.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. Can I just start with a question for you?
Yep.
Does anyone remember what the time limit was when cars were often being sold out the front of the caravan park? No, when they were being sold. But this is some time ago.
So is that correct, staff? It's 4 hours, just so that everyone can hear that. Do we know the answer to that? Don't know the answer. Would you like that taken on notice, or are you satisfied?
Yes, please. Because to the best of my knowledge, there was no time limit when there was lots of cars being sold. And is that right, Brian? Councillor Sample? Yeah. I lived down that way and went over that bridge most days and remember when there was cars being sold. And I'm pretty certain there was no time limit, hence why it was used as an all-day parking for cars. So I think I'm not a professional in this space, but I believe 4 hours probably isn't enough time for someone to park there without getting fined if they want to sell their car. So while I appreciate the safety concern, we have many other zones in Gawler that are 4-hour parking.
There's obviously some contention around the answer to that, so we'll make sure that's taken on notice and we'll clarify.
I guess my point is I understand the concern regarding the safety concern regarding those cars, and as well as the economic model, but 4-hour car parks, I would be very surprised if there is 3 cars lines stacked up with 20 cars being sold in a 4-hour period. And if there is, well, I think Ticket Liquor will have a field day collecting revenue from those, because there's no way they're all going to get out in 4 hours. So I think it's a little bit jumping the ball game to say that it's going to be used for private car dealers, even though it historically has, because we still have a 4-hour time limit on there. However, in saying that, I think that, you know, pursuing this as a bit of a trial period and monitoring what happens is obviously very, very important. And the other thing too is if it ever does become a safety concern, whether it's regular sized vehicles or RVs, we can always contact the police and believe that there is police concerns if there's a safety issue in regards to parking. So I think while I understand the sentiment that council members were referring to there, I think that is an issue which shouldn't be one of the major ones. But overall, just going through some of the concerns that were mentioned, I agree. I would like to echo the importance of supporting caravan parks, B&Bs and other accommodation. And I really like the way Deputy Mayor Shanks put it in saying that actually that is true, that people on longer road trips are guided by where it's easy to park, and that can ultimately lead to paid accommodation being used in future. I think it's, again, that's echoed in the continued support to local caravan parks as the preferred dump points, where both our caravan parks are key users, the key holders of the dump points, which will be able to be used. And I think somewhere in this site, you know, whether it's a sign or promotion online to say dump point available for $5 at Gawler Caravan Park or something along those lines, I think would be really beneficial. And of course, ensuring that good signage turning into the car park, and I think off Murray Street as well, is really essential as we proceed forward into the trial period. Talking about the site being a de facto free campsite overnight, as has been pointed out a couple of times, it really already is. So if that does become an issue, that is something we can look at. But I think ensuring quality signage that says all day parking or something along those lines, I think will I guess nip that in the bud. Councillor Kosh, you mentioned about how this is designed for one class of people. Yes, the multi-storey car park at Woolies has a height restriction of 2.05 metres. My car's taller than that. I don't feel discriminated against when I can't use that car park. I just find alternative areas to park. So at the moment, there is nowhere in Gawler for these people to park, or very, very limited options. What we're actually doing, I would argue, is the complete opposite. And we're going to open this up for people who are using longer vehicles. I also just need to reiterate, because I know there has been some history regarding the RV friendly side of things. This doesn't initiate any talks with the Caravan and Campervan Motorhome Association about RV friendly. It is purely our own asset, our own. We've got nothing to do with that, which is, I just need to stress that we are not being guided by any requirements that they set out. This is not going to cause Gawler to be an RV friendly town. It is purely just providing, as Councillor Hughes put it, longer term parking for larger vehicles. That is simply what we are trying to do today. The last thing I really wanted to express is I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of experience in parking at many of these places around the country, and many in urban or metropolitan areas. And what you'll finds to happen if it is a chillier night and someone is on a 6-month-long trip around Australia and they can find an easy place to park and they realise it's a 10-minute walk down and you've got access to 10 different restaurants or pubs down the main street, people will go and spend money. And at the end of the day, part of our mandate is supporting local businesses as the representatives and ratepayers, the representatives of ratepayers. Part of our mandate is to support those. So by providing this space, which really is sort of sitting there just waiting and begging to be used, we're actually assisting businesses, which, while it may not be a massive impact to the overall economy of Gawler, I think you could argue very well that it is going to be a really positive impact to individual businesses in our town, not just hospitality, retail and other businesses too. So lastly, again, I'd just like to thank staff.
Just a heads up, we've got 30 seconds.
Oh,
left.
goodness me. Has it been that long? Just very quickly, I'd like to thank staff again for their support. And I would also really like to thank members for their respectful and robust debate. I greatly appreciate it. And I think we all can appreciate it too. So thank you. And again, I just ask that you please support this motion.
Thank you. 5 seconds to spare. Thank you, Councillor White, for closing that debate. So I'll now put that motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Those against? Sorry, carried. Thank you for the reminder. All right, moving on now. So to item 8.2, which is the Gawler Fringe. So we have two options here. Happy for someone to move to suspend meeting procedures if we'd like to have a conversation about that. Otherwise, if someone's happy to move one way or the other about either Apex Park or Walker Place being used. Councillor Kosh moving to suspend meeting procedures. Councillor White is seconding. All those in favour? That's unanimously carried. All right. Would anyone like to start that discussion? Councillor Kosh.
Yeah, look, I'm just concerned that a lot of the cost involved with the fringe is around the liquor licensing requirements. We've got to put up fences, got to have security, a whole range of things, and it just bumps up the price. And I don't think that's very fair. I think maybe the licensee that's who's actually selling alcohol there should potentially pay those costs, or we just say we don't sell alcohol. And that way it's a family-friendly event. I don't know why we need to have alcohol being sold at a council event. And each year I talk about the same thing, but it just pushes up the cost, unbelievably. So that's my biggest concern to start with. So that's just starting off.
Okay, no worries. Would anyone else like to comment on the motions that we have before us? Yes, I will come to Mayor Redmond for a question, then we'll go to Deputy Mayor Shanks. Sorry, let me turn off.
Just on the Apex Park proposal, if there's more alcohol and you've got the Kingsford across the road, and you've got Dan's right next door or just down the road, how are you going to manage the antisocial behaviour if there is any antisocial behaviour? Because currently in Walker Place, it's fairly well contained, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of antisocial behaviour. But with Apex Park, it's a bigger area. You'll have more people. So how are staff going to manage antisocial behaviour?
Would you like to comment, David?
So through the chair, obviously we would have on-site security available. We'd have processes in place to support staff. We'd have the support of South Australia Police in the event as well. We don't expect there to be elevated levels of antisocial behaviour because of the nature of the event itself. It's not a so-called drinking event. It is more of a family-friendly event scenario. In terms of numbers, yes, are increased, but we would have enough staff, responsible persons, and working with the SAPOL and our security to manage those behaviours.
Thank you. We'll go to Deputy Mayor Shanks, then come to Councillor Hennessy.
Just confirming, the report reads as such: if we were to say go for an event at Apex Park, it actually doesn't change much in budget allocation because we're able to reuse savings. Can I just get that confirmed through you, Chair?
That's correct. Refer to David.
So through the chair, that's correct. We've got a budget allocation that council's endorsed through the budget. Regardless of the location of the event, would work within that budget allocation. So the additional costs as outlined in the report could be up to 4,000 over what would Walker Place be, just because of fencing, potentially larger staging, but we'd look at that, and one more night of security. However, we can work through those processes, but the actual budget total quantum would not change for Fringe in Gawler. We would work within that budget constraint.
Thank you, David. We'll go to Councillor Hennessy and then Councillor Samble.
Thank you. I think back to when this started 10 years ago. The idea of having a fringe event in Gawler on a Friday night was to keep young people here in Gawler for a gathering, for an entertainment, rather than all trek into the city to attend fringe. We were trying to encourage our young people, to stay here and treat an outdoor venue as a bit of a gig and alcohol, and yet still in a friendly, open environment. We now it seems to be suggested that we turn it into a family event. I actually think we have plenty of family events in the town. I think this is aimed at a different demographic, and it is to keep people here. And then for the rest of the fringe, particularly Saturday night, people will head off. That's what people do on a Saturday night. So I'm preferring, I think, to keep it on a Friday. And I'm preferring to keep it in Walker Place because we need to activate that area. And that's in discussion with the Main Street traders, that is what we've always said, that we will activate Walker Place. And so the businesses around who've done a very sterling job of supporting this over the last few years continue to be able to open it and be involved. We move it across to Apex Park. There is much less impact on the community, on the main street. I think they lose that benefit, and I think it becomes event that they're not contributing or not being involved or not reaping the benefits for. I'm also this is the year where we need to be extremely financially responsible. If there's money to be saved, then let's look at saving it. I don't think this is the year under the budget conditions to start doing more and greater and more extravagant. It's about, cutting our cloth. And that's going to be a mantra that you hear me say time and time again. So not this year. Let's continue as we have done in the past.
Councillor, so we'll go to Councillor Sam, then comes Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Kosh is right. And why do we need alcohol at this fringe event? David Barrett just said a few minutes ago, this is a family-friendly event. Are we a mob of fistpots or something? Why are we promoting alcohol?
With the language, but
oh
yes,
no, I started with it. But anyway, what I'm saying, I don't understand this. It's already been explained. If you have alcohol at an event, we have the Rotary Club of Light, we have other service clubs involved in this who do a fantastic job in these family-friendly events. That's what we should be supporting and promoting, not alcohol. Within 500 metres of that area are 3 businesses that pay a lot of rates to this council, right? They're hotels. It's the church that's gone from one spirit to another. They've all got alcohol. Okay, let them have it. But this is a family-friendly event. If we get rid of the alcohol, we get rid of the security guards, we get rid of the fencing and all of these sort of things. And we have what Mr. Barrett has said, a family-friendly fringe event with plenty of music. A bit too loud for me, but I'm deaf. I can still hear a bit of it. But let's get serious about this. We do not need alcohol at a fringe event. Somebody please explain to me why we need it.
Just to clarify quickly, David, so with the getting rid of alcohol, would that result in getting rid of the fencing and the security, or would that stay?
So through the chair, some fencing and security would stay depending on location as well. So if location was Apex Park, we would still have to fence around the stage area to keep it secure overnight. And we still have security guards present to look after all the equipment. In Walker Place, we would still fence around, so it'd be easiest to fence either end and have security guards present overnight as well to protect the equipment that's on site.
Go to Councillor Davies and then back to Mayor Edwin.
Yeah, just a question around, is there a particular reason why the Walker Place option is on the Friday and the Apex Park option is on the Saturday?
David. Oh, sorry, I'll get this eventually.
So through the chair, the intention behind that was to have the 10th event at Apex Park being an all-day event, starting early in the morning and running all the way through to the evening, encouraging families to come along. We wouldn't be doing that on a Friday because there'd be less uptake because it's during school term. So people would still be at school during a Friday. So that was the difference between Friday night Walker Place as opposed to Saturday Apex Park.
Thank you, Mayor Edmund.
Thank you. I tend to agree with Councillor Hennessy. I think we need, I think alcohol can be used responsibly, as much as I asked a question around antisocial behaviour. However, I think Walker Place, and I agree that we need to look at our finances. Apex Park would cost more, not a lot more, but would cost more. And I think we need to be mindful of that, but also having somewhere for our young people to go is really important, is really, really important. And there was a time in Gawler where there was nowhere to go and they all went to town. They all went to town. And there was a time in Gawler where you wouldn't go out in Gawler because of the violence. That's been sorted, which is fantastic. And so I think that we need to balance it, have a smaller event in Walker Place. I think the Friday night works really, really well. People knock off work, they come out, they stay. It is a family event, but there's also a lot of young people there. and I really like to see young people out in Gawler enjoying what Gawler has to offer. And I think that if we go to Apex Park, yes, it will cost more, not a lot more, but it will cost more. And with all the police going to the CBD of Adelaide now, will we get police here? I'm not sure. I'm sure we'll get a couple, but I think that my leaning is towards Walker Place. I think it works. I think people love it. They always enjoy the Walker Place event. And so does the young people, but it's a really good mix of people. You have people in wheelchairs, you have people coming from all walks of life, and they all mix together. And I think that's actually quite special. So I'm sort of leaning towards Walker Place at the moment. We'll see where the conversation goes.
Yeah, I'll just clarify. Staff of David could just give us an update on, I guess, the staging and capacity at Walker Place at the moment. Is that sort of at capacity, or is there still room in Walker Place during the current fringe events that we've had?
So through the chair, the redesigned Walker Place has less capacity than was previously there because of garden beds and benches and things. We haven't reached a critical mass for the event at Walker Place, so we haven't exceeded the capacity of it. I don't know the exact number of people, but we haven't reached that for the events that we've had, although it is slightly less than previous, which is why we're looking at potentially, with the committee's discussion, the Walker Place moving to Apex to widen it, noting it is the 10th anniversary, but we're happy with wherever the committee takes it.
All right, thank you for that. Good. So we'll go. Can't remember Councillor Davies voting yet, so we'll go to Councillor Davies and then come to Deputy Mayor Shanks.
Yeah, so just a question around, I guess, working with the businesses on Murray Street, because it talks about, I guess, a poster drop about letting them know that it's happening, but in terms of actually coordinating with businesses around here, we're going to have an event. We'd love if you were also open or running, something on the street or that kind of thing. Is there been anything along that lines being considered?
David.
So through the chair, we do have a couple of channels with that. First of all, we offer the provision of service, especially the alcohol service, as an expression of interest process through the main street. So that raises awareness of the event coming up, and we work with the businesses who are submitting interest around that. We also work with the Gawler Business Development Group to promote the activities that we're doing and work with their traders who are all members of that group to open up after hours, but we haven't had any success in that space. Although obviously the hospitality venues are open on that Friday night historically and will be. So they're definitely open doors, but the main street traders haven't uptaken it.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Shanks.
Yeah, look, I see the merit of Apex Park, not as a from here on out sort of thing, but just celebrating the 10-year anniversary. That's where I see the value. We definitely have a good night on the Friday night. I've been a few times now. It does get busy at certain times, and sometimes we do burst at the seams a little bit, but as a young father with two that would love to be able to benefit from these sorts of things. I mean, I'm guilty of taking them into the garden at certain times when the fringe is on during the day and benefiting from that. And then it does, yes, the crowd does change. I mean, if I was to make a recommendation and you want to see young people getting out about, just head to the exchange. You'll be able to see them dancing their little legs off for sure. But I think what our offering here is, and what we're trying to build on from the Walker Place, which again, I'm not against it being there from here on out. I'm more about celebrating our very popular event and giving an offering that actually opens a door. I like the idea of the activation of Walker Place with some smaller activities. You know, maybe it's a partnership with the Gawler Makers Market. You know, sorry,
Just, okay.
yeah, okay, but
No, we're not gonna, oh, yeah, just, yeah.
sorry, there's a local market that may be interested or not, either which way. And you know, there's other local markets that may be interested as well that operate on Sundays in other areas too, who knows? But regardless, I see the opportunity here to probably net some more of our community that otherwise can't make that Friday afternoon. I personally try to pop past as a Friday knockoff, and you know, I try to do that, but I see more opportunity of bringing my family down personally, and I know other young families that would do the same. As for the alcohol thing, you know, we lean on businesses like the PA, for example, which is a local ratepayer pub, which we talked about, who come and benefit from this event. A bigger area might have better opportunity for more local pubs to uptake if they're interested. Who knows? But I don't like the idea of missing this anniversary because, yeah, the next one comes around in 10 years after this. And I see an opportunity here to capitalise on what has been an otherwise successful event. So, yeah, I'm probably leaning towards Apex Park, if I'm being honest. And if there's some cost implications, well, you know, let me go back and look how much construction fence I've got and see if I can donate that for the cause. But either which way, I'd like the idea of capitalising on this 10-year anniversary.
Thanks. So is the chamber satisfied? We have some indication, or councillor, would you like to contribute first? And then just being aware of time, we might move back to the motion.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. Did the idea of it moving to Apex Park, was that purely a 10-year anniversary item, or has there been any feedback over the past few years from community members that have attended, which, you know, some of those issues might have been solved moving it to Apex Park? And if there has been, what was that feedback?
I believe it was the 10th anniversary, but I'll pass to David for some further information.
So through the chair, the driver was the 10-year anniversary, and to also celebrate historically what happened at Walker Place, which was a Friday night all the way through to Sunday event. So it was actually a 3-dayer effectively, and to bring that family atmosphere back in that used to happen on the Saturday and Sunday in Walker Place, but it was definitely a 10th anniversary driver. Yep.
Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, just a question. Have we, through you, Chair, have we consulted with the Gawler Business Development Group on this idea?
David, do you have an answer to that question?
So through the chair, it has been raised at the liaison meetings between council and the Gawler Business Development Group. I'm not sure whether it's got through to the board, but I can raise that next week when I attend their board meeting.
Thanks. If there's no further questions or comments, is everyone happy to move? Do we don't need a motion to move back into the formal meeting? Everyone's happy to move back into the meeting. All right, that's right. So we'll move back into the meeting now. Is someone happy to put a motion? Councillor Hennessy.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy to, my motion would be the first one, remaining in Walker Place. And then the rest is straightforward, 2, 3, and then 4 becomes, of course, the Civic Centre and the Walker Place.
Yep. No worries. So that's the motion that we've adopted now. So Mayor Redmond is happy to, so would you like to speak to that first, Councillor Hennessy? Mayor Redmond, are you seconding that one? Yeah, would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, look, I think that there is pressure on our budget. I appreciate that it's a 10-year anniversary. However, I think that Walker Place has really nailed the Friday night. I'm not sure. We used to have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and not many people came on the Saturday night, and hardly anyone came on the Sunday. Only a few people came, and I'm not completely sold on the 3-day in Walker Place, and it got really hot as well in February. So I like the idea of Walker Place. I think we can do a wonderful 10-year anniversary there. I think that it is a smaller boutique area, and I like the idea that we activate it. And it's still costing us 66,000. How much? $66,700. If you include 31,700 in kind, $66,700. It's quite a significant investment from a staff point of view, but also a cash point of view. So I think that it is important that we look at our budgets and I think we can still do a wonderful 10-year anniversary in Walker Place. Thank you.
Councillor Koch, or discussion, Councillor Koch.
I'll be supporting this. I think Walker Place is a very good place. It's central, it's boutique, it can be managed. It does have an opportunity to activate some of the businesses in that area. And I think it's enjoyed by the community. The original fringe we had was actually in the laneway here between the bank and here. And that was quite fun. And that was well populated and people really enjoyed it. And then when we did the development here, we moved out to Walker Place, and I think it's been well received by the community. And I think it's a great place. I just want to say with this report, it does mention the Gawler Makers Market. I've been at pains to keep my role as a councillor and my role on that other committee separate. And I'm just concerned that this was in here without any consultation with the committee I'm involved with. I just want to bring that up because this could have caused me a conflict of interest. And I'm just concerned there that people are mixing those two together up. I just want people to be aware that they're two separate. Thank you. So anyway, I'll be supporting this, and I think this is a good initiative, and I think it'll be a great benefit for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Koch. Councillor Samble.
Yes, from this motion, if we vote for this motion to have it in 2024, will there be more discussions on regards to what occurs there, so that more time can be spoken about who's going to be there and so forth, food outlets and things like that, and whether or not we have alcohol? Is there going to be more discussions after this motion has been put forward tonight?
I might refer to staff on exactly what will be operational and what will come back to the council. David?
So through the chair, the normal process from this point in time is that staff go ahead, plan and deliver the fringe, and we start promoting and marketing. We don't come back to council prior to fringe with an update of these are all the acts and these are the performers and these is who's in and involved, because this activity and the events is delivered as per the report. So we wouldn't be necessarily coming back.
Yes, question, Mayor Edmund.
Just on the acts, and I think that's where you're coming from, Brian. I know that you're very passionate about local performers, and will there be local performers? I know that we've had some big acts sort of towards the end of the night, but will we have local performers? Because there's a plethora of fantastic artists in the region. I just wondered how that will work, David. Sorry, Chair.
No worries. Pass that on to David.
So through the chair, we would definitely be encouraging local artists to perform as part of the fringe. We always have examples. We call a youth band, for example, was a performer through there last year, and I'm sure they'll be back again in the 2024 fringe. We've had Emerald perform there before at the fringe events, so we do have that local content. We would want to be considering though a larger scale marquee event ending, as we have done in the past, whether we can source them locally or whether we have to go further afield statewide, not international, sorry, not national or international, but statewide we might have to. We'll just see what happens. Yeah. Possibly not Swifty. We'll leave that one alone to Sydney and Melbourne.
Yes, we'll go to Councillor White and then we'll go to Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm happy to support this motion. I'm not opposed to events being held in Apex Park with more of a family-friendly focus. However, I do agree that the fringe part of its charm is the intimacy. It's being held in Walker Place. It's being held right in the middle of the CBD. I think that's what really makes it quite unique. And I think it would be a shame to risk losing that in its 10th year. However, in saying that, I believe, and I'm sure staff will be excited and keen to look at other ways to celebrate the 10-year anniversary within the Walker Place space. So yeah, no, very happy to leave it the location as is, but of course look at other ways of acknowledging what is a pretty significant milestone.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Davies.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to support this, and I think I probably would have been happy either way. I think they're both, you know, valuable in their own way. But I think I do agree that this is the vibe of this event, I think, is at Walker Place is probably more in line with the idea of the Fringe as a whole than just a general family friendly park event. Though to be clear, that is also happening, part of, not at Apex Park, but there is a Fringe in the Park event that's part of our Fringe program. And you know, I'm a big supporter of these events, family events in the park. I know as a back in when it used to be our youth committee was doing films and all sorts of things at the Apex Park. It was always a fun time. But I think for the Fringe specifically, I think the vibe of the event we do right now is pretty good, though. You know, there is, I think, you know, there were some things that we lost when we moved to a one-day event in terms of we were using those 3 days to have a lot of performances from, you know, local kids and schools and all that kind of thing that we sort of, in the more streamlined version, sort of miss out on. But I think as a sort of efficiency, what's the most efficient day we could pick out of that event to keep it going? The Friday night at Walker Place is probably that most efficient option.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Deputy Mayor Shanks.
Yeah, look, thanks for the debate. I think the Walker Place event, like I said before, is a very successful event, and the uptake has been successful over the time. And me personally, I've really enjoyed the event and catching up with people and promoting, you know, coming in after work and seeing some live music and mingling with community members there. For me, I see this window of opportunity on this 10-year, which I'm recited to the fact that I'm not going to get this across the line, but I see the opportunity here to really promote a bigger event and maybe draw in those community members that maybe dropped off on that Friday night to re-spark the interest, to really show what we have on offer in our Fringe. That's why I saw the attraction there at Apex Park, because we have received some feedback from some business owners in the past, and again, just take this with a grain of salt, because you don't know what communication they had, but you can only go by what you're told. And you know, the opportunity for them to put their van forward with some alcohol or food or whatever, it's limited in the space of Walker Place. We've only really got the space for the one. And there it doesn't really share the love. But then that said, the expression of interest goes out and the equal opportunity, and maybe one jumps at it, who knows. But just having that opportunity to be able to have that more space and really celebrate that 10 years is why I was attracted and still am to Apex Park. But definitely not taking away from the Walker Place event, because it is a well-received event, I believe. And I'd like to see it continue on there. But this one-off, I just see the opportunity to be able to, again, capitalise on that milestone while maybe re-engaging with some we lost along the way. So look, I won't be supporting this particular motion. But yeah, it's not because I don't like the Walker Place event. It's just, would like to see that other opportunity.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? In that case, I'll just add quickly that I sort of share some of the sentiment of Deputy Mayor, that I think there's Apex Park provides an opportunity for some extra space for things like for other businesses to engage in that space as well. But I'm also very happy for it to be in Walker Place. All right, Councillor Hennessy, would you like to close the debate?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thanks very much for the debate and the discussion. There's some good points, but I urge support for this year that we keep the vibe of Walker Place going. Thank you.
All right, in that case, I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? And those against? Right, that is carried. Moving on now to 8. So 8.3, which is the Gawler Community Plan 2030 plus review engagement strategy. Councillor Hennessy.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm going to, I'm happy to move the motion, but I'm going to suggest some amendments, and I'm happy to explain what they are with your go ahead. I'm really pleased that we are going to focus in on our principal strategic document, the community plan. We all can see, and we will be dealing with this document tomorrow night, in fact, how important it is that we get our community plan correct, that we go out to the community and we get them to tell us what they want us to prioritise. I think that's absolutely essential, and I'm pleased that we're starting down that pathway. My concern is, and the amendments I want to make, is that in identifying both on page 27 and again inside the attachment, which will go out to the community to explain what we're doing, we have defined who our community is, but we've left a very important, Brian, I'm sure you'll agree, a very important section of our community out. We've talked about families and students and young people, and we haven't made mention of the elderly people in our community, despite the fact that we have a framework document that actually talks about our ageing well, and specifically mentions within that framework the community plan. So I would like to see that we include aged people or elderly. I don't mind which terminology we use. There isn't actually a definition, a formal definition of who is elderly. There are just certain ages at which services are available to support people as they age. 55 for some, 65 for others. But in being within that age demographic, I would like to have input, specifically have input into what happens in my community in the next 10 years. So that's my comment on that. The other thing on page 33, where we do say who our community is, I noticed that we've used the term small and medium enterprises, and I do know that that aligns with government definitions of businesses, but for the community, I'm sure just using small and medium is going to immediately say, well, am I small, medium or large as an enterprise? So I would actually just make that businesses and take out the technical small and business enterprise definition. So I'm all about keeping it.
To clarify where that is.
Sorry, page 33 of 60.
Yep, and just whereabouts on the.
So number 5 is small and medium enterprises, and I would just change that to businesses.
Yeah.
I think that.
Do we have
plain English?
Do we have specific terminology which is used in that aging framework? Yeah.
Yep, older person. I tend to agree. Older people,
so
older persons.
You like that to say older persons? Or?
I would add that in as perhaps underneath 9 and 10. Put in a new category that says older persons.
And that's on page
33, but on page on page 29. It's again, we've discussed, and this is part of the report to us. We talk about engaging with families, young people, local businesses, community. We've missed it there, but it is most important in the document that's going out to explain our community engagement plan on page 33 that is definitely included there.
So just noting that says increase engagement. Would you like that also to say increase engagement, or just because I'm just aware that
just as amended would be, sorry, as amended with, yeah,
okay,
that's fine.
Right. I think that represent, okay.
And I can
No
send
worries.
it, and I'm happy to send through the details to the minute
So
taker.
everyone's clear on exactly what's being proposed with that motion. Councillor Davies.
So just a question, so, because I'm not clear on the small and medium enterprises wording, is this does this mean all businesses, or are we deliberately excluding like local Coles and Big W and stuff by saying small and medium? I'm just want to be clear on what the wording change means.
So Bryce.
Through the chair, yes, the intent was that the focus would be on smaller, medium-sized businesses rather than multinational businesses. But as part of, as a business within the community, they would still be engaged, possibly not at such a face-to-face level and such direct.
Satisfied with the answer, Councillor Davies, and you're satisfied with keeping that in, Councillor Hennessy. Just checking, is anyone unclear on any of the changes that have been made there? Because Councillor Hennessy.
Yeah, no, I'd still just like the term businesses rather than small and medium enterprises. I think it's confusing
In that
and
case,
excluding.
if everyone's clear, then we'll proceed to moving the motion. So Councillor Hennessy, you've moved that motion. Is there anything you'd like to add to that? No. Is there a seconder for the motion? Mayor Redmond, would you like to speak?
Thank you. Yes, our ABS data actually shows people over 55 is greater than the national average. And I think Councillor Hennessy has rightly picked that up, that the older person in Gawler, people come to retire in Gawler, they free up their assets and they have money to live on when they come and live here. There's lots of retirement villages, etc., etc. I agree that businesses, I think lots of local people work in Aldi and Big W and Coles and Woolworths. So I think that, and lots of managers of those companies live in Gawler. So I think that there may be interest in some of the multinationals, and a lot of the multinationals are getting more involved in local communities. And the people who work in those stores are actually getting themselves together and investing in local communities. So I think that that's been a good change. But yeah, older people is a really important gap that we haven't addressed currently, but we will be addressing that when it comes back to council for the Ageing Well framework and Ageing Well advisory group. So I think that that's a really important inclusion, and lots of people who engage with council are older. So I think that they will be very interested in our community plans. So I think it's a reasonable strategy, and yeah, I hope that we support this.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Deputy Mayor Shanks.
I was just wondering if, through you, Chair, staff would be amenable to just chucking in an extra workshop or information briefing between the March 2024 and July 2024 internal stakeholder engagement. I know we've got a Discover workshop in August this year about it, but having the opportunity to touch base on how the council staff volunteers workshops went in that August, September, April, May, I thought would be a good thing. Sorry, I'm on page 35 of 60, Chair. Yeah, obviously just that last information briefing, tying everything up and talking things through before we see that endorsement final come through in July. I just see the value of that and just thought I'd put it out there.
Just check, is that possible? That is possible. Yeah, okay. Vice, that is possible. Yep.
Yep, sure. So just to talk through the timeline there, in terms of the 13th of February, the special CCS meeting, the driver behind that being to present to the committee here the outcomes of the community consultation. So to provide a real detailed report, as well as potentially, as the committee would choose to, in a workshop setting, to talk through what the feedback has come from that 7-week community engagement process. And then staff here would take on the comments from the committee at that point, refine those, and then put that back into what would be the community plan coming back in March, then seeking that as a draft final document to go out for that community consultation. So that's the plan at the moment. But as we go through the process, and as it says within the engagement strategy here, that this will change based on how things turn out, whether that's feedback and consultation from the members here, or as that comes through from the community, there may be a need to change things, change timeframes, change how we go about that. It is going to be a living document that will evolve as the process changes, as the process unfolds there, with the goal of having it adopted around that time of July next year.
And just a point of clarification from Mayor Redmond, then we'll come back to Deputy Mayor Shanks. Yep.
Just on page 34, I know up there it says as amended, but there needs to be an extra column for the older person. Yeah, I just sort of just
no worries.
clarify that.
Thanks. Thank you, Mayor. Deputy Mayor Shanks.
Yeah, thank you. Look, just to be clear, I'll support this motion, and I'm keen to go through that engagement process. I guess my feedback, which I get where the staff through Bryce is coming from, but I do see those workshops and information briefings a bit more open to be able to provide that feedback and collaboratively have that back and forth. I thank the chair for suspending meeting procedure tonight, but if this comes back to a CCS that's stacked with other items, I think that opportunity could potentially get lost, hence the information briefing preferred method over a detailed report, which we really do appreciate, but just the ability to tease that out when we come to that finalisation of endorsing this plan. I think there is that opportunity to have it at that stage. But again, I'm happy to support the motion the way that it sits and provide that feedback and start going through the process. And who knows, we might be informed enough in the meetings that lead to, but just flagging that early.
So you're happy to proceed? You don't want to check with the mover?
Yeah, no, I think the wording in the engagement plan is fluid enough, and I'm comfortable with Bryce's response there.
No worries. All right, thank you. Any other discussion on the item? There being none, Councillor Hennessy, is there anything you'd like to add? No worries. All right, in that case, I'll put that motion now. All those in favour? Unanimously carried. Moving on now to information reports. So 9.1. Which is the Gawler Aquatic Centre season review. Would someone like to move that motion? Councillor Hughes, would you like to speak?
Yes, thanks. I'd like to thank the staff for quite a detailed report. And actually this report seems a bit different. It might be the same as other years, but I thought the details were really good. I like the comparisons. You can see where things like the swim schools and the income sort of sources. You can see that the costs of running the pool. I like the comparisons with the extra number of people actually attending, even though it was a lot colder season, we had extra numbers. I think people like the updated change rooms and the improvements that have been made at the centre, and they're starting to really appreciate that. I think it's a really good report. The opportunities with the swim training and everything else is, I think, still there. It's something we have pushed in past years to try and improve those numbers. Try to improve the numbers of members of the amateur swim club as well. They've been fairly successful, but trying to get more of their membership up was why we've given them really substantial discounts to try and build that membership. So that hopefully is still happening. But yeah, just to commend the report and the work, because I think it really gives a really good picture. So thank you.
I should mention we have Angus with us here tonight, who's written this report. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Do we have a seconder for the motion? Mayor Edmund, would you like to second? Would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Hughes. I agree with your comments. I think this is a really well-written report. Well done, Angus. Well done. Fantastic. I think I use the pool quite a lot, as do most people in Gawler, and I always am struck by the professionalism of staff and the way they manage people and children. And I think that it is a credit to the staff that are employed at the Aquatic Centre and also the management, which is Angus, of course, team leader. Fantastic. And of course, Natasha as well, and all the leaders of the Aquatic Centre and the Rec Centre. So I can't tell you enough how professional the staff are. They really manage people exceptionally well, and I see it when I go down there, and I bought a membership, so here we go.
Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Hennessy.
Yes, I echo the words of Councillor Hughes and the Mayor. It is a treasured asset in our community. I'm very pleased that the report notes that this is a facility not only used by members of the community, but it's used by the Starplex and the Barossa swimming clubs. Something that always needs to be highlighted, that we have a unique 50-metre outdoor pool, which is very conducive to the training of people who want to take this to be a competitive sport. I'm also happy to note that we're maximising opening in school holidays, because I think that's a particularly important thing. And then lastly, I'm also pleased to see that we are now going to use a specialist supplier of recreational agency staff. I think this will help us as we will be able to then access both the skills and experience required for what can be sometimes a challenging customer service role. As we've just noted, we've had it sent to us. We encourage people from 16 to apply for these positions, and that's great for the young employment in our town, but it can be quite challenging dealing with members of the public, as we all know. So I think using a specialist supplier will certainly help us to be able to get the right fit into those important roles.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Shanks.
Just a question through you, Chair. With public holidays, we change our hours on public holidays, I believe. I had some feedback from Mrs. Lillycrap actually around the usage and seeing if there's any scope to be able to keep hours the same on a public holiday, because obviously, you know, those opportunities where children are at home and families have it off, they have that opportunity to use the space on those open business hours that align. Yeah, it just takes that opportunity. But I do note, obviously, the staffing costs go up working on public holidays, but I did promise I'd pass on that feedback. So I'm true to my word and be able to pass that back. And yeah, I'd like to speak to the report. Firstly, thank you, Angus, for the report. You know, I think this particular asset is one of those assets that really shows we are a regional hub. 65,000 entrances going through. Just to put that in perspective, we've got a population of 24,500 here in the town of Gawler. Not to say they're not multiple users, but you know what I mean. I mean, that's a pretty impressive figure that I think the Mayor and Councillor Hennessy put it really well in what the offering is, that it isn't at, say, users like the Starplex and things like that. And that's why I think we do need to capitalise on this asset. And I love being able to follow the sort of social media posts. There are always these good news stories that I just, I like, probably sort of watching as they go through. So yeah, I know this is only an information report, but it is good to receive these annually because our updates on our assets, especially ones like this, are very, very important. So yeah, thanks for the report, and obviously I'll support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other discussion on the report? Or anything you'd like to add, Angus? Good. All right, thank you. In that case, Councillor Hughes, would you like to say anything else? You're happy to close the debate. I'll now put that motion. All those in favour? Unanimously carried. Thank you. Moving on now to item 9.2. Which is the page issue here. This is the heritage learning on existing infrastructure. And I think Mayor Redmond's happy to move that. Would you like to speak? And then we'll go to Councillor Davies.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think this is another really important report. I think it would be good, and I think I'll leave it up to staff on whether it's digital or physical, about the communication medium. But I think that's going to be really, really important for our heritage buildings, particularly council-owned heritage buildings. So I think this is a really interesting report, and I look forward to seeing what transpires.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Davies.
Yeah, look, I'm definitely happy to see this report, and thanks to Jacinta for writing it. I was the one who originally moved a motion about getting a report on this, which came back a year ago to council, and so I'm happy to see it not just be that one report, but to to continue to work, because I think this is one of the more important things that we could be doing in our town. Originally, I was looking at things like our new toilets and the way that it talks about the the modern bay figs and all of this other stuff, and and I think that's really really beneficial to our town. I think QR codes are something that we should definitely, it's sort of something that a few years ago I probably would have told you, oh, I don't know about QR codes, but thanks to COVID, there's a really high level of understanding of how QR codes work now. And so I think it's a bit less niche now and more, publicly open and available. And as the report says, there's different purposes for, the physical signage when you go down to a park or Dead Man's Pass or something like that. There's a value in having a physical sign there, but there's a lot of just buildings and stuff that there's a lot of history that, you just go to any random business on Murray Street and you can probably find out a ghost story about someone who died upstairs there or something, 100 years ago. And that's the kind of thing that, it would be great if we could get, people come into a business and, just even working with businesses on here's some old photos and here's a QR code and here's some more stories about how this all is, how there's so much history to this whole town. So yeah, happy to support this.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Any other discussion on Councillor Hennessy?
Yeah, I'm also happy to support this, and I thank the staff member for presenting what is actually quite a nuanced response to what we actually need. There are times when we will want to have printed signs, and there are times when we don't want printed signs because we don't want to add to the clutter or obscure what it is we're trying to promote. So in that case, the digital will often be more appropriate. And as Councillor Davies has said, there's a lot of extra information and extra material that we can put into a digital format, as per the example that was mentioned about Pioneer Park. So I'm happy to support this and thank the staff member for the report.
Thank you, Councillor Hennessy. Is there any other discussion on this? I agree, it's a fantastic, very exciting report. If in that case, Mayor Edmund, is there anything further you'd like to say? Happy to close the debate. I'll now put that motion. All those in favour? Unanimously carried. Moving on now to item 9.3. Councillor White, I believe you want to talk about a conflict of interest.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm just will be declaring a general conflict of interest because of my role as an umpire and vice president of the Barossa Light and Gawler Umpires Association, who are users of Elliott Goodyear Memorial Park. I'm just going to be declaring a general conflict and dealing with it by voting, remaining in the chamber and voting in the best interests of the broader Gawler community. And that's it.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you, Councillor. Or maybe is there something extra? What needs to be added in there? And then I'll come to Councillor Kosh. Yeah.
And you need to explain why you want to stay in the room. So if you can, maybe the CEO can provide some advice in that regard.
So how's that usually done, CEO?
Well, to further explain why, just to provide the further clarity, to provide substance to the declaration, but also to demonstrate that although there is a conflict, that again, you're here with a fair and uninhibited mind, and as you mentioned, and making the best decision in the best interest of the community. So it's just further elaborating on that substance of the conflict.
Clear on what you have to do, Councillor White. Yeah, awesome. So
thank you.
Make sure we get it right.
No, thank you for the advice. And it's a little bit of a tricky one actually, because the easy option would be to leave. However, the reason I would like to stay and participate in the debate and vote is because I feel like I can provide some good insight into the master plan report. However, I will be voting in the best interest of the broader community. The recreation reserve has got many user groups. I just happen to be one of them, but I think I will be voting and in the mindset of thinking about all user groups and the broader community as a whole. And that's why I'll stay in the room.
Thank you, Councillor White. I think that's covered everything. Councillor Kosh.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Look, I'll be declaring just a general interest in this item. I'm the Good Sports Ambassador for the Gawler BMX Club. I'm not a member of the committee. I have no involvement in the running of the club. I simply am the ambassador. I go and I suppose view how the events are running, and that the club and all the people there at the event are abiding by the requirements under the Good Sports program. I'll be staying part of the meeting because this is only a noting report, and I'll be voting in the best interest of the community essentially because I have no real interest in the overall running of the club, just an overall view of the behaviour on certain nights.
Sorry if I missed it. Did you say that was a general?
Yes, I've just said general because I'm the Good Sports Ambassador.
Mayor Redmond. Yeah, sure.
Councillor White said that he would add extra insights by staying in the room, and that's the reason why he wants to stay in the room. It's really important that that's documented, and would add extra insights by staying in the room. You happy with that? Yeah.
Just checking that. Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. And just one more thing, minute taker. It's the Barossa Light and Gawler Football Association, not the NFL. I'm not that good, unfortunately. Yeah. But to be really technical, I'm also the vice president of the Barossa Light and Gawler Umpires Association, and I feel like there will be future reports where this interest will need to be declared. So I'm sure we can get it all right now. Yeah, thank you for that.
So you're happy with that entire explanation now, Councillor White? And you're happy with that explanation for you, Councillor Kosh? Yeah. Yeah. No worries. All right. Thank you for that. You've both handed over your sheets. Cool. In that case, would someone like to move the motion? I'm going to go Councillor Hughes. Would you like to speak?
Just, yeah, as Councillor Kosh said, it's a noting report, but think it's really good that it outlines the whole process. It's a big process, a very important process, and a lot of work, but very, very important for future planning and allocating resources and hopefully getting some funding from other sources. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. So, Councillor Deputy Mayor Shanks, secondly, would you like to speak?
Yeah, just quickly. Yeah, look, I think it's good to be able to get these updates and all going well. You know, seeing that April 24 to May 24 council adoption of a master plan is quite exciting. I think it's almost like this particular project was a project that was sitting below the line for a number of budget cycles, because I do note we're the 11th of July and all of a sudden we've got this report on how we're going to jump on it. So I appreciate staff pulling the trigger on something that I know you know, they've been trying to for many years. So yeah, look, I'm happy to support and note this report and look forward to the work that's going to happen in this place in this space moving forward.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Shanks. We'll go to Councillor Hennessy.
Yeah, thank you. And I would like to acknowledge that the report clearly lays out all the stakeholders, and that's good to see. Not only those members that hold leases on this land, but also those who occupy the Crown land, and particularly what's going to become the adjacent Williston Hub. So I'm glad that all of those have been scooped up to be involved in the master planning. I think that's really to be commended, that we have cast our net wide to ensure that they all involved in this. I note the timeline for the budget, that what comes from this master plan would be then fed into consideration for next year's budget consideration. But again, here we go. We're going to have to be extremely mindful of where the money comes from to progress some of this. Certainly we can seek grants from state and federal, but it's given the number of projects, major projects we have got on our books at the moment. I'm going to think it's going to be quite a hard think as to where this will come, to ensure that we allow some of the other projects to move through and to be finalised. So we're not easy. It's not going to be an easy fit, but I look forward to seeing what's proposed and what costs come with it.
Thank you, Councillor Hennessy. Deputy, sorry, Mayor, you want to speak, and then we'll go to Councillor Davies.
Thank you. One of the advantages of doing a master plan is that you have really good groundwork for applying for grants and applying for really quite substantial grants. So I take on board what Councillor Hennessy said in regard to the next year's budget cycle. However, I would like to see some, once this is in place, that there's you know, a desire to go for grant funding, and that then discounts the cost to the local community and indeed the ratepayer. So I think that it's very exciting, because it has been under below the line for a number of years, and now we're going to get on with it. It is good that the Williston Hub has been picked up on that. I think that's really important, because I know that there's some issues with car parking for service clubs, etc. And I think that through this process, hopefully all of that will be worked out, and I hopefully come to a consensus in regard to that particular issue. So yeah, I think that grant funding is really where this sits, and let's hope we get more money for sport and rec in Gawler.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Davies.
Yeah, it's a good report, and just, I guess, on the topic of our previous motion, you know, the Elliott Goodger Memorial Park is in memorial of Elliott Goodger, but I wonder how many people who visit the park are clear on who he is and why we've named a park in his memory. You know, and that's the kind of thing that would be great to see you know, people being able to learn about when they visit the park.
Thank you, councillor Davies. Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to echo everyone's thoughts, I think it is a very exciting project. I think what's really exciting about it too, and a bit more unique than other sporting facilities, is it's so versatilely used. It's used by such a diverse range of groups, not just sporting groups either, which I think is fantastic. So to bring all these groups, all these community members together when consulting for this master plan, to then hopefully go get some funding for the project is really, really exciting. One thing I will say, which all the groups listed are fantastic, but the Umpires Association does actually use the land and isn't listed under a community or sporting organisation. So through the league, it does lease it through Williston Football Club, which obviously is a leaseholder. But I would suggest, if the mover and seconder were okay with it, that the Barossa Light and Gawler Umpires Association also be put under point 2 community sporting organisations, as they're weekly users of it for training every Wednesday night. But of course, it would also be able to be consulted on a number of things that would concern the umpires. So if the mover and seconder are okay with that, I would suggest that that takes place.
Seconder, you're amenable to that as well. Yep. Thank you. Brilliant. So yeah, that's then as amended.
Yeah.
To mention that.
But other than that, yeah, I think it's fantastic to see it moving forward, and I'm really excited to see what's to come.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Just add that I think this is a fantastic project. I know Bryce is excited about it, as are many of the user groups, and as Mayor Redmond said, the way to ensure that we get funding is to make sure that we have those plans in place, and so that's a really important step, and it's good that we've taken it. In my view, it's good that we've taken it now. Is there anything you'd like to add, Councillor Hughes, before we close debate? In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimously carried. We now move we have currently have no items listed for discussion. If anyone would like to list any for future meetings? No. Questions without notice? Are there any questions without notice? No. Motions without notice. We do have one, I believe. We'll go to Mayor Redmond. It should be up on the screen in a minute.
So as a result of Prue speaking and Martin speaking, I thought I'd test the waters with the motion without notice, so that the Pocket Park, and I've called it Julian Terrace, although it might be Whitelaw Terrace, but I think it's still Julian Terrace there. Is it Julian Terrace or Whitelaw Terrace? Hey, it's on the cusp, isn't it? So I'll call it Julian Terrace, be investigated for a potential name change. Now, I did notice that Prue wanted Zonta in there, so I'm happy to add a Zontian reference, but I think a report be presented to the next Corporate and Community Service Committee meeting in 223. I think I added that in 223. Now, if that's too soon, we can have it to the subsequent corporate, because I think we've got two more. Have we got two more?
Seek advice from staff.
Yeah.
Is that, David, is that possible in that time?
Through the chair, there's no problem at all.
Yep, no worries. Okay, so just come back. Please.
Sorry. Yeah, so look, I'm happy to add i.e. Ghana language / Zonta reference. Yes, thank you. I beg your pardon? Zonta Credo.
Yes. Correct.
Okay, so we can put, well, how do you spell that? How do you spell it? I don't know. I've never. Well, if you could advise, how do you spell credo reference? Okay, yep, credo reference. I think we still need reference. So I thought I'd test the waters and just see if we can get this and a report to come back to just see what the process is. And it gives us a bit of clarity around maybe adding a Ghana name. That's not our call. I think it's the language group's call. However, it may be also important to, within that report, to have conversations with our RAP advisory group or working group. I think that's actually also very, very important so that we engage with all stakeholders so that everybody feels comfortable with this, this name. We are in the process of getting Ghana names for our parks or some of our parks, dual names. I don't know where that's at, but hopefully we get some information soon on that. So I thought I'd just test the waters because I thought it was such a good idea and see where it goes.
Councillor, thank you, Mayor. Councillor Hennessy, you had a question or comment?
Yeah, just thank you, Mayor, for raising this as a motion on notice. I just wondered whether you wanted to also include in that report the second part of their presentation, which was about potential merchandising.
Yes,
Okay.
so just so everyone can hear that in public, that's the mayor would prefer that be a separate motion.
Okay.
Yep, no worries. Is there I'll ask for a seconder first, unless there's a question. Or Councillor Davies, I believe you had your hand up first.
Yeah, I'm happy to second it. I think, yeah, I'm happy with the wording and everything. I think the original wording about a name change, I was gonna, you know, probably contest a bit because I don't think we've ever officially actually named it a pocket park. That's just the, I don't think it has a name officially, but yeah, I think as it is there, I'm happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Any other discussion? Councillor Kosh.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to support this, in particular the naming, because I've written down what Prue said. She said that their credo is from the Sioux Indians and it's to do with honour and trust. So they want the same sentiment from the Ghana language. So it's appropriate. So I think that's fantastic. Yeah, great. Yep.
Yep, that's a good point. Any other discussion on this item? All right. There's no other discussion. Mayor, would you like to have any closing remarks? In that case, everyone's had time to read the motion. They're satisfied what they're voting for. Fantastic. In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? That's unanimously carried. Thank you. Mayor Edmund, a second motion without notice.
Picking up on what Councillor Hennessy said, I think that's a really good point. It may be that the Corporate and Community Services Committee recommend to Council that, sorry, Sarah, I'm thinking out loud, that the intellectual property of the mural be investigated to understand. David, I might need your help with this. Yeah, so it's really about whether the domestic violence group can use the image of the mural in their merchandise, and I think it comes to intellectual property.
We'll just get some wording around that.
So David's very good at this type of thing. I think it just rounds that off. So I might speak to it if I can. Is that okay, Chair? Or do you want me to wait until the wording is up?
I think the intention of the motion is clear, so I'm happy for you to speak
You
to it
happy?
now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think picking up on what Prue and Martin have said around using the mural in merchandise is a really good idea. I think there has to be a way of us investigating that, and then what this motion says is that we will considers providing the Gawler Domestic Violence Network rights to merchandise the artwork contained within the pocket park, so that it considers providing. So we have to investigate that with the intellectual property, but we also have to make sure that there's no risk to them and there's no risk to council. So I think that what this does is considers providing the Gawler Domestic Violence Network rights to merchandise the artwork contained within the pocket park. So I'll leave it at that and listen to the debate.
Councillor Hennessy.
Again, thank you, Mayor. My concern would be is that this is setting a precedent. While I'm very supportive of what the domestic violence wants to do, this sets a precedent for the use of any of council's public art for third entities to use. Yep. So I was going to suggest that we, rather than recommend straight to council, that we mimic the word beforehand, that we ask for a report to come back to the committee, just outlining how this can occur in a fashion that both allows the domestic violence perhaps to move forward, but also sets us up so that we have a good precedent. Yep, investigate. Yep, that would be lovely. Thank you.
We'll just wait. Yep. We'll just wait for that wording to go up on the screen before we move to any other questions. Yes.
Can I just check that the CEO is comfortable with that, because he made the original comment that we need to do the investigation.
Yep, that was, yes, an affirmation. That Councillor Davies, you had a question or comment about the wording?
Yeah, about the wording. Just specifying the artwork, I guess, just because there's more artwork in the pocket park than just the Zonta ones. There's a mural on the other side of the wall that's not theirs.
What's that? Yeah. So we'll just get the name of that, which is the name of the mural is, for everyone listening online as well, is remembering courageous women mosaic art is the name artwork. Is that? Are we satisfied with that wording? Satisfied that. And any other questions about the wording or comments about that before I'll let Councillor Hennessy second that? Would you like to speak to it? Any other discussion? In that case, so that wording's final. Everyone's clear on what we're voting on. There's no further questions. And that's a valid motion. Yep, no worries. In that case, I'll put the motion now. All those in favour? It's unanimously carried. Brilliant. Are there any other motions without notice? No, there's no other motions without notice. In that case, we'll close the meeting now at 9:18 PM. Thank you. And the next meeting will be, the next CCS will be Tuesday, 12th of September 2023. Yeah.